Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Let me first start with an article I wrote on the 3rd of June where I said bond yields are in tilt mode. And in that article I was saying that I accepted that the US consumer will absorb 20%, China will absorb 80% of the tariff increases, but I said even 20% of 100 is inflationary. To wit, US headline and core inflation higher than expected, headline 1.8% and core 2.2%. And essentially this really removes the room for further Fed action quite substantially in my view. Then we learnt from the Wall Street Journal that the US will delay some tariffs against China. And this goes back to a tweet when I asked whether President and Steve Mnuchin were hearing Xi Jinping loud and clear. And clearly, going back to July last year, I asked tariff wars, who blinks first? And Trump has just blinked in the China trade war. Jim Chanos is saying, tell me why Xi should not continue to wait out the world's greatest negotiator who keeps dealing with himself, says Jim Chanos. The White House is now delaying the tariffs and removing some items. Did some acronym called the SPX cause someone to blink? That's David Rosenberg. And this, let me take you back to the article I wrote over the weekend, the feedback loop phenomenon. And I was saying that popping the renminbi through 7 sent a shiver through global markets. The markets emit signals, and the signal the market was emitting was that there was a precise correlation coefficient between a weaker Yuan and weaker S&P futures, which is the point that was made in that CNBC article. What is clear is that Xi Jinping has repelled the US advance, and this past week's renminbi price action was a message delivered with finesse and subtlety, and whose import cannot be ignored. The point is that the renminbi is now the catalyst, and China has signaled it will be a shock absorber. Xi Jinping was also signaling he had control of the console. And then I was finally referencing that this purest proxy for the China, Asia, EM and frontier markets feedback loop phenomenon is the South African rand. Offshore renminbi recovered the 7 mark on that announcement by Trump, and we're last trading at 703.35. And as I previously said, the most important currency to watch right now is the renminbi. This is another chart of the renminbi from Simple Trends. And then we learned China's industrial production grew just 4.8% year on year, below the lowest estimate and the slowest pace in 17 years. So I think President Trump is the one who's blinked here. He's kind of, as was described, boxing himself. And I think what he's now trying to do is come to some kind of truce ahead of the election next year. Home thoughts: if our universe has been created by an advanced civilization for research, it is crucial to them that we don't find out. If we knew we did live inside a simulation, this could cause our creators to terminate the simulation, to destroy our world. Look, boys, it ever strike you that the world's not real at all? It ever strike you that we have the only mind in the world, and you just thinking up everything else, like me here, having the only mind in the world and thinking up you people here, thinking up the war and all the houses and the ships and them in the harbour That ever cross your mind? Yes, Naipaul. And then Jorge Luis Borges, you have wakened not out of sleep, but into a prior dream. That dream lies within another, and so on to infinity, which is the number of grains of sand. The path that you are to take is endless, and you will die before you have truly awakened. Political reflections, I'd written on the 7th of June that the periphery is a boil that will not be last. But I agree with Tony Nash, if the PLA marches into Hong Kong, I doubt the international community will actually do anything. The UN, the EU, the US, not even Canada. Of course they'll make noises and meaningless diplomatic resolutions, but nobody will do a thing, and China knows it. And previously I'd also said that the Tinderbox is the periphery. Is it possible prosecutors have lost track of Ghislaine Maxwell? Asked Vanity Fair. Those who know her say that it's possible she is as much of a Houdini as Epstein. Both of them liked having secrets and the way those secrets kept people off balance. Jeffrey always wanted to give the impression he was an international man of mystery. I control everyone and everything. I collect people, I own people, I can damage people, says an ex-girlfriend. The nature of the relationship between Epstein and Maxwell, the favourite daughter of press baron Robert Maxwell, who died when he fell or was pushed from his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, is not well known. Epstein told of aged women he courted that Maxwell was a former girlfriend fallen on hard times, and he had taken it upon himself to maintain her position in society. Ghislaine floated in and out of the house with the keys. Another woman in Maxwell's orbit says she used to joke about keeping herself rail thin because Epstein liked thin girls. Maxwell, whose father was Jewish, liked to shock. She said, I do it the way the Nazis did it with the Jews. The Auschwitz diet, I just don't eat. On the weekends in the 1990s, Maxwell would have her rollerblades FedEx to Epstein's Island in the Caribbean, and said she got a helicopter's license so she could transport anyone she liked without pilots knowing who they are. Maxwell also said the island had been completely wired for video. The friend thought that she and Epstein were videotaping everyone on the island as an insurance policy, as blackmail. A source close to Maxwell says she spoke glibly and confidently about getting girls to service Epstein, saying this was simply what he wanted, and describing the way she'd drive around to spas and trailer parks in Florida to recruit them. She would claim she had a phone job for them, and you'll make lots of money, meet everyone, and I'll change your life, the source continues. Ghislaine was in love with Jeffrey the way she was in love with her father. She always thought if she did one more thing for him to please him, he would marry her. Maxwell had one other thing to tell this woman. When I asked what she thought of the underage girls, she looked at me and said, they're nothing, these girls, they're trash. This photograph by Patrick McMullen of Getty Images, you can see Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with Carol Mack at an event in New York City in 1995. According to Tom Bauer of The Times, in 1986, Ghislaine's father invited her to visit his new yacht in a shipyard in Holland to celebrate its christening in her honour as the Lady Ghislaine. In November 1991, Maxwell's body was found floating in the sea near the Canary Islands, and his luxury yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, immediately following his death. Ghislaine flew to Tenerife, where the yacht was stationed, to attend to his business paperwork. Though a verdict of death by accidental drowning was recorded, Maxwell has since stated that she believes her father was murdered. commenting in 1997 that he did not commit suicide. That was just not consistent with his character. I think he was murdered. Ian Robert Maxwell was born Jan Ludwig Hyman Benjamin Hock and was a British media proprietor and Member of Parliament. Here, this is from Jake Hanrahan, drone footage shot from Jeffrey Epstein's island just as the FBI is raiding it. It's a story you can't make up, and we get to find out where she is. The House of Commons Speaker John Bercow says he will stop Boris Johnson from closing the UK Parliament to secure Brexit. He would fight any attempt to prorogue Parliament with every bone in my body. He also said that MPs can stop Britain leaving without a deal at the end of October, putting him on a collision course with the Prime Minister's chief strategist, Dominic Cummings. 5th of August, I wrote about this. I said, as I watched the pound fall like a stone, I could not help wondering if this sterling moment is precisely like it was in 1992, a no-brainer. Boris isn't bluffing. Every action, every appointment, every word since he entered number 10 signals the same thing. Britain is leaving the EU on October 31st. That's the Telegraph. In my article, I said the key question is this: can Prime Minister Johnson self-eject Britain? Can he be stopped? And this is a political calculation. Sterling, meanwhile, is at 120.55. It's doing a lot of work around here, but I expect it to drop below 120. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 111.81, dollar index 97.746, Japanese yen 106.41. Swiss franc 0.9758, the pound 120.54, the Australian dollar 0.6778, India rupee 71.1245, South Korean won 12.88, Brazilian real 396.37, Egyptian pound 16.5487, and the rand, little bit of a rebound, 15.1485. This is a dollar index chart from Simple Trends. I agree with him. I think the dollar's headed higher, but at the moment it's been weighed down until yesterday by the bid for safe havens like Swiss francs and Japanese yen, but we saw some of that unwind. Let's see if that trend continues. Germany GDP shrunk by 0.1% in Q2. German 10-year yields dropped to a fresh time low of minus 0.62%. Euro dollar chart, this is from Kumo Wizard, last at 111.79. Gold, what a day, surged to fresh 6-year highs and then had an outside day, dropped below 1500 at a tremendous rate and were last just below 1500. It was a $50 plus drop on nothing, and really shows you how the market was extremely positioned. Crude oil, that had a very strong session yesterday on the Trump comments, $56.25. The rout in Argentina's dollar bond due January 2028, which drove up the yield by 525 basis points, was a 4 sigma event according to Bollinger Bands. That's Srini Sivabala. That means the move was 4 standard deviations away from its 20-day moving average, an event that's expected to happen only once in several decades. According to JP Morgan, overweight Argentina was one of the most crowded trades among investors at the end of last month. Coming to Africa, Ebola bond pays investors millions while Congo battles outbreak. A new way of financing the fight against global diseases lured investors with annual returns of more than 11%. The deadly Ebola outbreak in Africa is highlighting the shortcomings of so-called pandemic bonds in halting contagions. The pandemic bonds, the first ever, triggered by patterns in deaths from infectious diseases, while the $320 million sale was hailed as a way to fight disease with finance. The funds are locked up by an arcane formula one that may rarely be satisfied by actual events. Bondholders are collecting rich interest payments even as the DR Congo is struggling to arrest an Ebola virus outbreak that's killed more than 1,800 people the past year. It was a lot of hype. They wanted to announce a new initiative that would impress the world. World Bank sold the bonds due July 2020 as part of an overall effort called the Pandemic Emergency Financing Facility to aid countries in the early stages of a global contagion, diseases like SARS, bird flu, and Ebola. Issue was a bondholder's dream, with US Treasury yields near record lows and offers a return found only in shaky junk-rated bonds, sold from the best credit in the world and with a payout formula that was hard to trigger. Transaction was 200% oversubscribed. Premium for the bonds, one of 11.5% and other 6.9%, cost about $36 million a year, paid by donor countries including Germany and Japan. The conditions are that the requirement for deaths in 2 countries protect the pandemic insurance fund from inappropriate use. For example, a $95 million tranche insuring against an Ebola virus outbreak pays investors more than $1 million each month. I've written about Ebola severally, but the main point is it's all about its escape velocity, because viruses exhibit non-linear and exponential characteristics. Mobile phones are replacing bank accounts in Africa. It doesn't look like the hub of an online bank, but that's what the yellow and blue metal kiosk becomes when Albert Agani locks himself behind metal bars every day at 6 a.m. From his perch along a dusty suburban thoroughfare in Accra, the 28-year-old helps Ghanaians withdraw or deposit cash for accounts they operate from their mobile phones. All they need to do is text. Mobile money is the fastest growing source of income for wireless network operators like MTN and Vodafone Safaricom, outpacing data since many Africans don't have the latest smartphones. They need agents like Again because ATMs and bank branches are out of reach or too costly. In a village where there are no banks, you can go to an agent to transact. He earns a commission of 1% for moving as much as $3,700 a day. Once people have phones, there's no need for a bank account. The service has become indispensable for Africa's 1.2 billion people, from buying funeral cover to borrowing money. Number of registered users in Ghana soared 11-fold between 2013 and 2015. Kenya, the value of such transactions amounts to almost half of GDP, according to the World Bank. Lot of partnership opportunities with immense revenue potential for both mobile network operators and banks, mass appeal of mobile money services and the mode of delivery also presents an opportunity to scale financial products to all market segments at incredibly lower costs. Vodafone, of course, bought a stake in Safaricom from its parent to gain access to the M-Pesa money transfer service, helping to double earnings from financial services. Vodacom last year made 11 billion transactions worth $134 billion to 36 million customers. Huge prospects. One of the things that was lacking in our financial system was the ability to move funds around. Businesses have been established because of mobile money, so not only moving it around, it's the velocity as well, which is key. And if you look at Safaricom's results, 75% of the increase in profitability came from mobile money services. My article, as I said over the weekend, was about the feedback loop phenomenon. And I said China has exerted the power of pull over a vast swathe of the world over the last 2 decades. We can call it the China, Asia, EM and frontier markets feedback loop. The feedback loop has been largely a positive one for the last 2 decades, with the renminbi now in retreat and in a precise response to Trump. This will surely exert downside pressure on those countries in the feedback loop. And I was citing South Africa. South African all shares up 4.66% year to date, dollar rand. 15.145, little bit of a recovery in the rand. Egyptian pound steady, 16.55. EGX 30 up 8.78% year to date. Nigerian all-share down 13.12% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange down 5.99% year to date. Moody's Investor Services rates Helios's 5 billion college hostels note issue, rating it at B1 stable, a rung higher than Kenya's sovereign rating of B2 stable, due to a partial guarantee being made to investors through Garantco. Acorn's student housing transaction is an important milestone in the development of the local capital markets for private financing of infrastructure in Kenya. Kenya Shilling doing quite well, 1 in 320. Nairobi all share up 5.81% year to date. NSE 20 down 10.26% year to date. And that's a 10-year low. Once again, thank you for stopping by.